This is Gemara Zevachim, Daf Mem Gimel, and we're holding at the Mishnah at the bottom of Mem Beis Amid Beis. We continue with the discussion of Pigel, but now the Mishnah continues with telling us exclusions, cases in which one would consume a Pigel without the chiyuv of karis. All the learning, once again, we like to be an incredible schos refuah shalema for Gavriel Simcha ben Miriam Ahuva b'soich sha'ar chili Yisrael. Says the Mishnah, Velu dvarim she'in chayovim aleim mishom pegel. The following items, one is not chayiv for them due to pigel. Now, what does that mean? Says Rashi, really as we spoke out, but let's allow Rashi to set the floor for us as always. Says Rashi, it means kares bachilasam mishum pigel. There's going to be no kares when these items are consumed. Says the Mishnah, what are the examples? Hakaimitz v'aktaris levaina. Hakaimitz. Someone performs a kemitz, and Rashi says, what's the case of pigel that you had a das? Your mindset was lechel shirayim lemachar v'nispagla hamincha. Ein ha'oichel es hakaimitz sak Rashi b'kares. Shein ha'pigel chal el al davar sheish loy matirim. Achirim. V'hakaimitz ein acher matirav ki hu ha'matiras hamincha v'chein levain v'chein kulam. So Rashi over here is telling us the yesod behind everything. That why is there no kares? Says Rashi, because pigel is nachal only on something that has other items being matir it. But these items that we're about to see in the Mishnah, they are the matirai, nothing else. The kaimetz is what allows the mincha to be fulfilled. And therefore, there's going to be no pigel. We continue on to Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, and says the Mishnah, so the first case again is kaimetz, case number 2 is levaina. Continues the Mishnah, number 3, minchas kehanim, number 4, minchas kohen Mashiach, number 5, hadam, number 6, vanisachim abam b'fnei atzman divri Rabbi Meir. 6 different cases that the pigel will not result in one who consumes these items in karis. Chachamim Ma'imrim on the third line of Gimel Amud Aleph, avabayin behema. Say the Chachamim, even the nisachim that brought together with a behema, with a carbon, they as well will not have this level of pigel. Lug shemen shel mitzeira, the lug of oil of a mitzeira. Rabbi Shimon Aimer ein chayav lam v'shem pigel. Rabbi Meir Aimer chayav lam v'shem pigel. Shedam ha'isha matirai. What's the reason why Rameir says in this case is pigel? We just said that these items don't have pigel. Why? Because they are the matira. There's nothing else that's matir it. Says Rameir, that's not true. In this case, the dam of the asham is what makes it mutter. So this is really, of course, where Rashi got it from. As the Mishnah itself explains, anything that has something else being matir it, whether it's being matir it for one to eat, whether it's being matir it for the mizbeach, there is going to be a chiyuv pigel, there will be karis. Concludes the Mishnah, ha'ila, the carbon ha'ila, dama matir as bisar lemizbeach, the dam permits the basar to the mizbeach, va'ira, and the hide, l'kayhanim, ha'ila sa'if, dama matir as bisar lemizbeach, Chata soif, dama matir as bisar l'kayhanim, parim and israfim, musirim and israfim, the par and the seir of, this is the par apanimi, and the regular seir, these are our koyin gadol, our yom kippurim karbanais, daman matir as a murei and likarev, the dam permits the imurim to be brought in the mizbeach. Shimon Aimer kol she'inoi ala mizbeach achitzoin kishlamim ein chayavim alav misham pigel. So Shimon concludes the Mishnah that in these cases there will not be the chiyav karis and pigel. Why? As Rashi, a little bit further down in the Amid, end of the narrow lines, Rashi comments on Rav Shimon Aparim and Israfim Polik. He's only talking about the case of the Par and Israfim. Why? Because kol shein dama matirai kishlamim shepigel ksiv beho ein chayav misham pigel. Pigel is said by the shlamim, by the mizbeach achitzain. And therefore, those are going to be the only cases that have a full-fledged pigol with a karis. Says the Gemara, Amar Ula Kaimetz Pigol Sheheloi Al Gabe Hamizbeach. A kaimetz, again, the three fingers that you grab of the flour of the carved mincha, that was pigol, that had a machshava to perform the avodah chutz l'zmanoi, and it was brought on the mizbeach. Paka piguloi mimenu. The pigol is paka. It disappears. It departs. It's no longer part of the carbon because it was brought on the mizbeach. Imacherim mevi, continues Ula. If the kaimetz imacherim mevi lidei pigol, the reason being that if the burning of the kaimetz can bring other items to pigol, hu atzmai loikal shekin, is the burning of itself not the same? So a little bit cryptic as the Gemara is about to dive into what Ula really means. But the words are that the kaimetz of your mincha, you had a machshava when you performed the kemitza, when you took these three fingers, you had a machshava that it's going to be chutz l'zmanoi after the appropriate time, thereby creating these kaimetz, this kemitza to be pigel. And then you brought it on the mizbeach, says Ula, it's no longer pigel. So says the Gemara, my kamar, what exactly is going on? What does Ula mean? What does it mean that the pigel falls away? And the reason being because there is able to make other things mutter. Says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar. And Einai miskabel, if the kemitza is not mitkabel, it's not accepted on the mizbeach due to the fact that it's pigel. Heich maybe acherim lidei pigel. How can it bring other items through pigel by its burning? And we know that once you bring this kemitza on the mizbeach, it makes the carbon into pigel. So says the Gemara, so that means that it must have done something. Again, if by bringing this carbon, it makes something else change, that means that the bringing of it is something. So says Ula, the bringing of it must be what? That it makes itself not pigol as well. Says the Gemara, my kamash malan, what is Ula teaching us? Tell me there's no pigol, tanina. But we already learned Elu Dvarim Shidchavlam Mishapegel, our Mishnah. Says the Gemara. So what would the Chiddush of Ula be? The Mishnah says explicitly that if one eats the kemitza, there is no kares. So there's no kares, meaning who cares if it's brought on the mizbeach? There's no kares. Mimanav shach, it sounds like. Ella, so you know what Ula is teaching us? 10 lines on the bottom, the first one line is Ella. Dim alu lo yardu. Ula is teaching us that if this kemitza was brought onto the mizbeach, you do not take it off the mizbeach, even though it's pigel. And therefore, you should not have brought it up on the mizbeach. Once it's there, we leave it there. Says the Gemara, I understand, Tanita already learned this as well. Halon, va'yoytze, if we have a carbon which was left overnight, va'yoytze, it was brought out of the Beis HaMikdash, va'tamei, or it became tamei, v'shenisha chutz l'zmani v'chutz l'mkaimai, or reshechted with a machshavas pegel, im alu lo yardu. It's true, it shouldn't have been brought, but if you did, it doesn't come down, so that can't be the chiddush of Ula. V'ela dim yardu yalu. So maybe the chiddush is that what? Let's say it was, you had a machshava pigel, and you brought it on the mizbeach, and then it was yardu, was taken off the mizbeach. Maybe the chiddush is you should be proactive and put it back on the mizbeach. Can't be. On Namitin we learned this as well. Says explicitly that what? Tim yardu lo yalu. So says the Gemara, what is Ula teaching us? Like 4 lines from the bottom. Chiddush of Ula is shemashla bahen ha'ar. The chiddush is that the ar of the mizbeach took hold, started burning the kemitza, and in that case, even if the kemitza was taken down, it is brought back up. That is the chiddush of Ula, that once, not just it was brought in the mizbeach, but once the fire starts burning it, now it's considered to be part of the mizbeach. It's considered to be the lechem, the bread of the mizbeach, and therefore, even if you bring it down, again, it was originally pegol, you're going to bring it back up, Ask the Gemara, Nami Amra, Ula Chadazimna, Ula already taught this last Amra, Ula Laishanu, Ella Shaloi, Mashla Benar, says Ula, only where the fire did not take hold of the item. Aval Mashamar, Yalu, you're going to bring it back up even if you took it down. So says the Gemara, you know what the Chiddush is? I would have thought that Ula is only talking about a case with a kaimetz which is puzzle. Honey, mili, what? Aver dimechaber. As we turn over to Mem Gimlum and Beis, only to the Aver, which is one piece. And therefore, we'll see Rashi in a moment, Aval kaimetz the mifras. A kaimetz just falls apart, it's separate items. Emaloi. Maybe the din does not apply, that even though already started burning, you're not going to put it back on. Kamash Malan, that's the Chiddush of Ula. Maravachoi. Helkach. Hai kaimetz pilgul de palgla. Says Rav Achai, you know, we see from Ula that if we have a case of a kaimetz pilgul de palge mochiz ara, which part of it is on the ground, not on the mizbech. Aske upalge aske amarach, and part of it is on the fire. Umashla bar, and the fire took hold of it. Masikna lulukula lechatchila. We'll take the other half of it and even put it on quote unquote lechatchila, quote unquote, because it's only because the other half started burning. That is going to be the chiddush of Ula. And really, we see in the top Rashi points out that what's Evid Mechaber Glamandam Kivin the Mashla Arb Mixasai Nikla Kula Bikdusha. So there, if it's one limb, we can understand that once part of it started burning, now we can understand how we'll let the whole thing burn. But the problem is, when it comes to this kamitza, when it comes to the flour, bread, each one is its own item. I would think maybe not. That's going to be the chiddush of Ula. Amar Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav Yechanan, 6 lines down. Ha pigol v'neiser atamei. If we have a case of a carbon that's pigol neiser atamei and it was brought in the mizbeach, shalom legam mizbeach, paka iser mehen. Says Rav Yitzchak in the name of Rav Yechanan, similar to Ula. Not just pigol, but these other issues that we have, these other stigmas, we'll call them, neiser tamei, disappears once it's brought in the mizbeach. Amar Rav Chisda, Mari Dechi, what? Master of this statement, literally. Mizbeach mikvah, Tahira is a Mizbeach a mikvah. You're putting on something Mizbeach which is impure. You're putting on something Mizbeach that's not going to be brought in the Mizbeach. And all of a sudden, the Isser disappears. Amar Rav Zera, Shamash Lamvar. Yeah, because the fire took hold of it. Master music bar bisna chayrim aimrim, says the brayso. But Tomasay alav, when the Tomas on him, Misha Toma barachas mimenu. We learn from here something that the Toma can leave. Yatsa basar, but basar is excluded. Shein Toma barachas menu, that the Toma cannot leave. V'misa, but based on what we just said, what do you mean? Hare Toma barachas mimenu ayidei are that once it starts burning, the Toma could indeed leave. Amar Rava, 2 lines in the wide lines. Ayidei mikvah kamrinan. That brisa just meant that the Toma can't leave via mikvah, and you're right, it can't. But by putting it on the mizbeach, it could. Says the Gemara, midei mikvah iksev. What do you mean the brisa is saying about a mikvah? Amar Papa bebasar shlamim askina and lo chazi lakrava. Torah basar shlamim, which is not chazi, not fit for the mizbeach. If that meat was tamei, the tama would not depart, even if it's brought on the mizbeach. Ravina Amar in the first life, Tamasa Allah Misha Tama Barachas Vimenu Kshu Shalem Yatabasa Davar Shein Tam Barachas Kshu Shalem Ela Kshu Chaser. It's the tama will not disappear while it's Shalem, only disappear, while it is Chaser. Says the Gemara, let's go a little bit deeper into the brayse we just quoted on the 3rd line, Gufa. But Tamasa Allah, what do the brayses say? That the Tumah is upon him. That now, what does it mean the Tumah is upon him, upon it? Either it means while the meat is Tameh, or it means while the person who's eating it is Tameh. So which one is the person, is the pasuk referring to? Says the Gemara, it's talking about that the person that's eating it is Tameh, and there's going to be kares if he eats the carbon bitama. Says the Gemara, but wait, so never can to Masai, never lahalam to Masai. Boy, Malam to Masai Gov Kasa Medaber, I've come to Masai Gov, Hakasa Medaber, Thomas Hagov. Rav Yesi, I'll tell you a different reason. Halv and Emmer Kachim B'Lashon Rabbim and Emmer Toma B'Lashon Yachid, but Thomas Agov Akazim Midaber must be from the contrast we know. So about Thomas Agov. Rabbi Yomer, a third shot. Va'achal b'Thomas Agov. Va'achal says the Torah. Thomas Agov Akasav Midaber. Cheir Moimrim, a fourth. Raya b'Thomas Alavi Shetoma Barachs Benu Yatsa Basa Shetirasa Barachas Mi Menu. So 4 ways of proving that is the case. Continues the Gemara, Amar Mar, with this we will conclude. Rabbi Yomer v'achal Thomas Hagov Akasim Midaber. Torah said v'achal. We just said this, that we see pasuk talking about the person is tamei. My mashma says the Gemara. What is the chiddush? Where do we see that the pasuk is talking about the person is tamei? Amar Rava called Kara Delay. Mefarish Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dumi, and he pasuk Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dumi didn't explain. Mefarish Rav Zira, and any Mishnah that Rav Zira did not explain. Loi Parishna is not fully clear. Hachi Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dumi Hayalu pasuk Hakatzah B'Lashon Nekeva V'Sayim B'Lashon Nekeva V'Lashon Zachar V'Lashon Nekeva and V'Lashon Zachar B'Emsa. So we see from the pasuk that there's different subjects due to the genders. From there we see Thomas Agov Akasim Midaber. That's we know that the pasuk is talking about Thomas Agov. When you stop over here, we'll pick it up from the Mishnah, continuing within the Shitas Rava and Zeira B'Siyata D'Ishmaya.